maybe talk through that. I've still got Alabama at number 1. And I was not feeling that midway through the fourth quarter of the Alabama-Florida game. I was thinking, okay, Georgia's got this win over Clemson. Maybe we swap them. But now, as I said earlier, I think Alabama has the best win of all the big good teams right now. I think it's a better win than Ohio State. I think on the road at Florida is a better win than on the road at Ohio State, given where those two teams are at right now. Ohio State struggling today really scares me. So I've got Alabama 1, Georgia 2.
I have to have the same top 2 list. Like, I have to have Alabama 1 or Georgia 2 in some order. I think right now I still have Alabama 1. I agree with you. We start getting into now the way that I like to evaluate my top 10, which is I don't think it's fair to say what would happen if they played each other. I don't think it's also fair to say what is the better team, because it's very matchup dependent. And sometimes the average quality of a team isn't necessarily the same as consistency. Personally, I think the way to do it is, okay, if they traded schedules, how would they do with each other's schedule is the way I look at it. So if Alabama played Clemson and they played UAB and they played South Carolina today, would they be 3-0? And how would Georgia be with Alabama's schedule? And I feel fairly confident that Alabama would beat Clemson. I don't know if they would dominate UAB or South Carolina to the same extent. I think they very well might, but I think they'd kind of pick their score. And I'm less sold, really, that Georgia will beat Florida than I am that Alabama will beat Clemson as of this moment. So that's why I have Alabama 1 and Clemson 2. But if I can make plenty of arguments to myself for why that's wrong, but that's just why I have it justified the way I do have it right now.
So for number 3, I've got Oregon. It was 17-7 earlier against Stony Brook. They ended up winning 48-7. I know neither one of us are super high on Oregon, and I hate to say that with them at number 3. My problem is I feel like they deserve credit for the Ohio State win. Even if Ohio State is struggling right now, I feel like they deserve credit for that win. And I think Fresno is better than they get credit for. I've got Oregon number 3. Who do you have number 3?
I think right now I would agree with you that it's Oregon. It makes me super nervous. I'm not sold that Ohio State wasn't just not playing very good football and that Oregon wasn't the beneficiary of playing an Ohio State team that wasn't playing very good football but was very highly ranked. But I think they're defensively really good. I think they have the ability to put together offensively. And more importantly to me, I don't think anybody else is really doing anything else to show me that they're better. So given the win they have and how few teams I think would actually beat Ohio State in reality, even with all their issues, I think it makes sense to have Oregon right now as number 3.
Number 4, I've got Texas A&M. I don't love what I saw in the first 2 weeks from them offensively. So even when King was healthy, 3 interceptions against a really bad team, I don't love it. I don't love, like, everybody's saying that A&M should be dumped because of what happened Minnesota, Colorado today. I don't agree with that at all. I already talked about it. When you put your backup quarterback in the middle of the game, that's a weird situation. I like that they put up points today, but they didn't play anybody. But I've still got them number 4 ahead of Iowa, because Iowa for like 2.5 quarters struggled with Kent State, who was terrible. Charles Barkley, terrible. I think on a neutral field right now, Texas A&M, even with the backup quarterback, would probably beat Iowa. I have concerns about that offense. Give me your 4 and 5.
Same 2 teams in a different order. I have Iowa and A&M, and I'm writing them down, so we're kind of coming to the same conclusions. It's I don't know if you guys if anyone in the chat's ever done anything where you like judge a competition. It's funny if you get a bunch of judges and you talk afterwards. You think you'll be all over the place, and you usually aren't. And this is kind of where we're at. Yeah, I think Iowa's ahead of Texas A&M. I'm not sold that A&M's offense has improved enough. I really like what Goodson, right, the running back at Iowa. I don't think Iowa's offense is great, but I think they're more consistent or cohesive, put it that way. A&M's defense is extremely good and probably one of the more underrated defensive units in the country. People talk about Alabama and Georgia. A&M has been lights out on defense. But the offense with King down for the foreseeable future, I've got question marks. So that's why I have them behind Iowa.
Number 6, and this is where people are going to get mad, but I'm consistent in how I do this. I've got Florida at number 6. And look, Florida's probably going to lose to Georgia. But we have maintained on this show for a long time, just because you can't beat number 2 or number 1 doesn't mean you can't be the number 8 best team in the country or number 6 best team in the country. Florida showed me a lot today that I hadn't seen all year. And I'll be honest, like, before y'all criticize this top 10 or Florida at number 6, how many teams do you honestly think are playing within 2 points of Alabama right now? I don't think there's that many teams. Even though this is a crazy year, I don't think there's that many teams. Who do you have at number 6?
So I actually have Florida.
This is so boring.
Yeah, it is boring. But it's the same problem. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of teams that are floating everyone's tongue that are sitting on my list now that I feel like I could throw a dice past. Really, right now, Iowa and A&M are there almost by default. Iowa's win over Iowa State is still one of the better wins this year. And then A&M on, man, like I don't think we really have a clue. But I've got Florida there, and I'll go ahead and I'll let you go first since we're doing that format. But who do you have? Who do you have there at 6 or 7?
7. This is an interesting conversation that's already come up tonight, but I actually have Clemson at number 7. I still think they have an elite plus defense. I am really concerned that their offense couldn't score in a women's prison with a fistful of pardons. And I don't think they could beat Florida on a neutral field right now. So I got them at number 7, but I think they're better than a lot of people want to give them credit for.
Yeah, my number 7 is actually Ole Miss. And I had them in my top 10 last week. And I'm even bumping them up, though, to some extent, to be honest. I'm bumping a bunch of teams down and one team up behind them. I mean, they're offensively, they look like easily one of the best teams in the country. Defensively, they look good. Right now, based off what they've put on the field and the fact that they've played a common opponent in Tulane, will you agree with me with this? If you just look at the Tulane game in particular, is Ole Miss not the team that Oklahoma was supposed to be?
Yeah, somebody said that in the chat earlier. I hope they're still on, but that's what somebody said. Ole Miss is the team that Oklahoma wishes they were. Like that's who they're trying to be. Like, okay, we don't have a perfect defense, but we have a just absolute backbreaking, Death Star of an offense.
And I almost put them ahead of Florida, but the truth is, like you said, losing by 2 to Alabama is not a shame. And frankly, I don't know that I would have as much confidence with Ole Miss as I do with Florida. And I think Florida probably would beat Ole Miss right now. But yeah, so who do you have at number 8?
Number 8, I have Ole Miss. And the thing that's weird about this, you talk about rolling a dice, like I have Ole Miss at number 8, and tell me if you think this is fair. I have Ole Miss at number 8 because I feel like they could lose to Arkansas but beat Alabama.
Yeah. Ole Miss, I talk a lot about like quality versus variability. Ole Miss plays a style of football where they take a lot of shots and they run a lot of motion misdirection stuff. Those things will score more points over the course of the season than other styles, but they will also have games where they're bad. Like Ole Miss is a great offense and a great scheme if you're a team that isn't a top 5 talent team and you want to win 10 games. It's a really, really bad system if you want to go undefeated. They're going to drop a stupid game because of the way they run offense.
Right.
And it's going to be a team that plays conservative, hard-nosed football and doesn't screw up. And when Ole Miss has to work for it, they'll like flail. That's going to happen in a game. So I agree with you.
Number 9, this is wild that my top 10 looks like this, and people are going to be mad, but you know what? Play better. Number 9, I have Penn State, and this is probably the one I'm most concerned about, shaky about, because like we talked about earlier, we don't love Auburn. Like, we love that this was a fun game. I really enjoyed watching this game, and I think it's a energizing win for the program, but it's something that should bring about more concerns than lasting excitement come Monday, right? Enjoy the win for 24 hours, but like, y'all got some problems if you can't put away an Auburn that was on your doorstep to maybe tie it up, when Auburn is a depleted roster with a new coach and a new coaching staff. But for now, they got the win. They are 3-0. I'm probably more excited about the Wisconsin win than I am the Auburn win. I got them at number 9.
Yeah, and I don't think I ever said my 8 and 9, but my 8 is Penn State and my 9 is Ohio State. So I have Penn State at 8 for the same reasons. Not a lot of teams in football are going to beat Wisconsin and Auburn in a 3-game stretch. And I am 100% with you. Take your 24 hours, celebrate, enjoy that win. Your defense is going to keep you in every game if you're Penn State. Your defense can let you beat most every team in the country, I think. Your offense is not good enough to consistently beat a lot of the top teams in the country, especially my biggest concern with Penn State. It's a little unfair, but it's where they're going to be later in the year. That not only do I feel like the offense has really struggled to this point, and I frankly, if you replayed that Wisconsin game 10 times, I don't think they win but maybe 3 of them. But that offense, I think, has a ceiling, and that's going to be Penn State's problem, because I don't see Clifford getting better, and I don't see really a ton of weapons outside Dotson. Kane's a good back, but he's not a top 5 back that you're going to win a playoff game with. And then Ohio State sneaks in here, and they're falling down the list because they're not playing good football. They've lost to Oregon, they haven't really accomplished anything this year. Frankly, the only reason Ohio State's still on this list is there aren't a lot of other teams in this. People could laugh at the Florida being where we put them, but if I'm going to have Ohio State in this list with a loss, why would I not have Florida ahead of them with a loss? Because Florida's looked a lot better and has one loss themselves. So, I mean, it's almost hard to justify Ohio State in the Big Ten or in the top 10 if it wasn't for the fact that I just don't know who the heck I'd put in front of them. So it's not just on faith. It's more just I've run out of good options in terms of resume and quality of play.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but in my top 10, I don't have Ohio State or Oklahoma. I have Arkansas. And everybody's going to laugh, but what we saw from Ohio State today against Tulsa, after a come to Jesus kind of event that should have happened, like that locker room should have been shook after the Oregon game and lit a fire under their butts to go out and just murder a team that they're far more athletic than, far more talented than. And game was like 27-20 mid-fourth quarter. Come on. That makes me mad as someone who is trying to drag Ohio State across the finish line. Oklahoma, same business. Like, Nebraska is not good. Like, they're just not. And we're seeing what Ole Miss is doing to Tulsa or Tulane. I don't like the transitive property thing, but I do like the collective amount of data. I don't take a one-off game and say, okay, this is scary because this team beat them bigger than you beat them. I do say, okay, you struggle with Tulane and Nebraska is terrible and they could have beat you today. Tulane could have beat you that day. That scares me. Josh, gun to your head, are you picking Oklahoma over Arkansas right now? And give me your number 10.
I don't know that I would pick Oklahoma over Arkansas right now, given the way Arkansas is playing on both sides of the ball. And that's why Oklahoma is not in my top 10. I gave them a mulligan, and they kind of came out and laid an egg again. And I, frankly, I don't think they even played like we were talking about. It's not just that they struggled with Nebraska. Or that it was a close game due to weird things. They just didn't look good for the second time. And so at this point, other than name recognition and preconceived notions of how good they'd be, I don't know why I'd have them higher. I've got Clemson at 10, and I can't fault them for losing a close game to Georgia. I've got Georgia 2. I could easily have put Georgia 1. There are not many teams that are going to stay on the field with Georgia right now. And Clemson has major issues offensively, but defensively, it's easy to make an argument that they're a top 3 defense and that there are very few teams that are going to score on them consistently right now. And in fact, there's a big part of me that says if they played Oregon or a lot of these other teams, I mean, they would, like Texas A&M Clemson would be a knockdown, drag out, super low scoring game, and I'm not sure who would win. But Clemson's had so many issues, I have a harder time putting them to higher than 10th. As you said, though, the trick is, all right, we got Clemson at 10, and we've gone through our top 10. But let me ask you one question, because this is the struggle I have. If Oklahoma's not in your top 10, and they're not in my top 10, I don't have Arkansas just because I don't know how much of that was the Texas game, and I think Arkansas is really limited athletically, and a better passing team I think is going to give them real issues. Is there anybody else that you really like for consideration as an elite team, a team that could realistically play with a playoff team? Is there really anybody else you like nationally right now? Because to me, it's a big scrum, and I think there are a lot of teams that have some potential, but not a lot of teams that I'm really in love with.
No. And I do want to call out this comment because we just apparently lost a subscriber. I'm guessing an Ohio State fan who said we're trash, said they unsubscribed, and that the Tulane or the Tulsa Ohio State game was never close. It was 27-20 with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry. It was 27-20 with 3 minutes and 7 seconds left in the fourth quarter before Ohio State scored 2 quick touchdowns at the very end of the game with their starters. So, no. We're right. You're wrong. Goodbye. No, to your point, and Josh, this is maybe something you'll agree with. Like, right now, I feel like Alabama, Georgia, maybe Texas A&M or Iowa, and then if Clemson can put their offense together, the only other team that I'll put in that category as a maybe is Ole Miss. Like all of this other talk and all these other teams, there's no way I'm putting Oklahoma up there or Ohio State this year, given what I've seen so far. Doesn't mean they can't turn it around. But like if we're talking about today on neutral field, best chance against elite team, and which means if they can keep it together, best chance throughout the year. The only other one I got in there is Ole Miss.
Yeah, Oregon, I saw them beat Ohio State. I am still really skittish on.
Me too.
Like I have them at 3, and that really, I feel like that's fool's gold. I think the reality is we're the same problem I talked about UCLA and LSU, and I'll note UCLA is currently losing 23-10 to Fresno, and I know Fresno is a pretty good team, but they're not that good. If you want to be a top,
Fresno.
Yeah, and if you want to be considered for a top 10, you shouldn't be losing to Fresno. I'm still not sure that Ohio State's just really not playing great football. When Oregon went into that matchup as a super hyped matchup, won the game, and that's why we have them where they have them.